Welcome back to Taxes Made Simple. I'm your host, Carlton Dennis, and in today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how to switch your LLCs to S-corporations. If you currently have an LLC, or if you believe you have outgrown it and you're ready to make the switch to an S-Corp, then look no further than this video. This is the perfect video to learn how you can grow out of your LLC to switching into an S-Corp. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about making the switch, how to upgrade to the S-Corporation, what you need to avoid, some of the mistakes and pitfalls that I've seen other CPAs do when they're making the S selection for their clients, so that way you can get the approval that you're looking for in the time you need it. So let's dive in. Now, the first thing we're gonna talk about is why make the switch in the first place. To be quite frank, we talk about LLCs all the time on this channel, and switching over to an S-Corp is something that you are probably gonna do eventually by following some of this information I'm teaching you. The main reason why switching from an LLC to an S-Corp is going to be beneficial for a lot of you taxpayers is because it can help you save serious money on self-employment taxes, okay? LLC owners are forced to pay hefty self-employment taxes on all of their business's income. That's 15.3%, and they cover Social Security and Medicare. So if you have $100,000 annually of income, and if you're making this money through an LLC, then taxpayer, you're paying $15,300 in self-employment tax. Somebody please take the dagger out of my back because I'm bleeding, okay? But if you switch to an S-Corp, on the other hand, you'll have to only take a reasonable salary for a portion of the income, and the rest of the income can be flowed over as distributions, only subject to federal and state taxes. When you do this, you only have to pay self-employment tax on the money you chose to pay yourself, the portion of salary. For the distribution portion, you'll just pay ordinary income taxes, but these taxes are significantly lower, and the reason why we're doing this video is to express that. So for example, if you were still making $100,000 a year, but you switched over to an S-Corp, you could take a reasonable salary for $40,000 and take the other $60,000 in distributions. In this case, you would only have to pay self-employment tax 15.3% on the $40,000, and you could pay ordinary income taxes on the other $60,000 that you took in distributions, and that's gonna save you thousands of dollars in the process. Oftentimes when LLC owners switch their business structures from LLCs to S corporations, the tax savings are immense. They're so immense that sometimes it's the only strategy we end up doing in the first year for some clients. Then we end up leveraging all the other strategies like the home office, the car, the children, because it's such a powerful change for a business owner. It could be so burdensome, so cumbersome to have to pay self-employment tax year over year over year with no one telling you how to avoid it. It's like literally having a plastic bag over your neck and you're trying to breathe. It's so hard as a business owner to grow when you're constantly paying so much in taxes. This is a part of the reason why majority of business owners schedule consultations with my firm. They want to get that first question answered. Like, when do I switch to the S corporation? Now that I'm in the S corporation, Carlton, what kind of fun can I have? And that's when I start leveraging all the strategies for clients. Switching to an S-Corp from an LLC also has a number of other benefits, such as allowing business owners to contribute higher amounts to tax-deferred retirement accounts every year. Now, this can help you set yourself up more comfortably for retirement, which is a great benefit, but it also can help set you up for saving more money on taxes at the same time. When you're trying to switch from an LLC to an S-Corp, you have to understand the steps or you could fall out of compliance. So let's talk about it. The first thing you need to know about making the switch is that not all LLCs are eligible to switch to an S corporation, okay? Your LLC will only be eligible to switch to an S corp if you have less than 100 shareholders. If your LLC is based in the United States and only has one class of stock being offered. If your LLC doesn't meet all of these requirements, you are out of luck. However, if your LLC does meet these requirements, great, we can move forward with the process here. Switching over to an S-Corp is where we will start saving some money, so let's talk about the good news. The good news is that switching to an S-Corp is actually pretty straightforward, guys. It's not that hard. In fact, you can do it all by yourself. You don't need a tax professional. Filing in Form 2553, election by a small business, once this form is filled out, you will also have to have it signed by all shareholders of the business and officers of the company before filing it with the state and with the IRS. The deadline for making the switch, if you're planning to make the switch from the LLC to the S corporation, needs to be done prior to the end of the year, and actually needs to be done prior to March 15th. What this means, taxpayer, is that if you want your business to be classified as an S-Corp for a given tax year, then you will have to file Form 2553 by March 15th of that year. So, for example, if you want your business to be categorized as an S-Corp and take a payroll deduction and not pay 15.3% on a full 100K in the example I gave, you would have to have that submitted by March 15, 2022 for the tax year 2022. Now, I know a lot of people who are watching this video are like, Carlton, why would you put this video out if we're already patched March 15? What does this mean for me? Am I too late? No, you're not, taxpayer. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the situation you fall into. Once you're past the March 15 deadline, what can you do to make sure you're being still switched over to an S-Corp? If you missed the March 15 deadline and still want to switch from an LLC to an S-Corp, then you can file what's called a late S election. In order to do this, you will still have to fill out and file Form 2553 with all the appropriate signatures that I've discussed. At the top of the form, you're going to have to write down filed pursuant to Rev Proc 2013-30. When you include these words, it lets the IRS knows that you will switch to an S corporation even though you missed the deadline. It's the late S election process. Now, you need to know that just because you filed a late S election form does not necessarily mean the IRS has to approve the late switch. There are a number of rules that you must also follow to do the late S election properly and to have your switch actually be approved by the IRS. The IRS requires all of the following things for late S elections. The entity intended to be classified as an S corporation, and it must be an eligible entity. It must have failed to qualify as an S corp solely because the election was not timely filed. This is the case for most people. The entity must have a reasonable cause for its failure to make the election timely. All of the shareholders would have had to report their income consistently with an S corporation election in effect for that tax year and have followed the compliance requirements for an S corporation. And they would have needed to make the election less than 3 years and 75 days have passed since the effective date of the election. The IRS will be significantly more likely to approve your late S election if you have these reasons as the reason why you're filing a late 2553 form. If you were unaware that these deadlines were in effect, that is a cause enough for you to file a late S election. Now, although the IRS may be somewhat lenient when it comes to approving late S elections, that doesn't mean that it will always approve them. So I don't want you to assume that just because you're listening to this, that you are going to get your late S election request approved. It needs to be done in a timely manner and with significant reasons why you did not submit it on time. Now, what happens if your late S-Corp election request is denied? Generally speaking, it's never a good thing to file IRS tax forms late. I know we know that. And filing certain tax forms for your LLC late can result in penalties and interest. But if your S corporation election request is denied because you filed it late and you didn't have a good enough reason for filing it late, then this is the biggest consequence that you'll be subject to. You are going to have to pay taxes as an LLC if you didn't get approved to be an S-Corp, which means you're subject to the self-employment taxes. And if you filed your tax return late now, you are also subject to penalties and interest fees on the tax that you should have paid. S corporation elections are extremely fragile. They have to be done correctly. They have to be done timely. And if they're done late, the late election has to be done correctly and done the right way. This is part of the reason why you get to benefit from the tax code, is because the government created this late election for people who were negligent and didn't know that they could switch, and they're giving you an opportunity to switch late. But if you don't switch late properly, then they're just gonna treat you as the LLC or whatever you were existing prior to trying to make the election. The process of switching to an S-Corp from an LLC is straightforward, guys, but it has to be done on time. To switch from an LLC to an S-Corp, you have to make sure you're filing 2553 correctly. You have to make sure you're submitting it with all the required signatures by March 15th. If you miss the deadline, then there is still a chance you can have your S-Corp election approved, but it is not guaranteed. If you miss the deadline, you can file 2553, but you'll have to write filed pursuant to Rev Proc Procedure 2013-30 at the top of the form. I repeat, 2013-30 at the top of the form. You must adhere to all the other late filing rules. For example, there needs to be a good reason why you're filing the form late. The IRS approves your late S-Corp election, then you will be able to have your business taxed as an S corporation for that year. If not, then you'll most likely have to wait into the following year, and you'll most likely keep your status as an LLC for that year. But you can try to change it again in the future, as well as do some consulting with a tax strategist in the meantime. If switching to an S-Corp is a beneficial tactic for you, then I encourage you already to speak with a tax strategist to see what other strategies could you be leveraging inside of the S corporation outside of just taking payroll and setting up a solo 401k. In my office, we leverage over 200 strategies just for the S corporation and the LLC. I'd love to have a conversation with you, or maybe have one of my team members have a conversation with you to see if there's any additional items that we should be leveraging inside of your company. We regularly help out business owners with the process that we take by doing tax planning. It makes everything stress-free for the client because they're getting educated in addition to saving money on taxes. They're not just being told to sign something. Feel free to click the links below this video to get started with my team members on establishing a correct tax plan. To other tax professionals that are watching this video, this is the process. You have it now. I'm sharing this with you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as always, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more great tax content. I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. If you have any questions and need some help, feel free to visit the links below. We look forward to seeing you.